So today I want to give you 7 tips that I think you must know for installing tile floors in your bathroom or any floor for that matter. And my 7th one you'll really like because it makes installing mosaics much easier and maintenance free. Okay, so tip number 1, and I think is probably one of the most important parts of installing a tile floor, and that is knowing what your existing subfloor is. You don't want to be installing your tile over existing vinyl or, for most circumstances, over existing tile. You need to get down to that original subfloor surface and find out how thick it is, because this is going to determine what kind of tile you can install over top of it. In my experience, a lot of homes that were built after 1980s, they started using 5/8 inch thick plywood, and in a lot of circumstances that is not thick enough for the deflection that you need for tile installations. Typically you want to have a subfloor that's 3/4 of an inch thick and over joists that are 16 inches on center. An easy way to determine that is sometimes you can pull off a vent from the edge of the room, measure how thick that flooring is, and to tell whether you have 16 inches on center is just looking at the nail pattern of that existing subfloor and also where the butt joints of the plywood is. Most of the time you're going to have 16 inches on center, but it's an important concept to understand and know what you're going to be installing over. Tile requires very little deflection for it to be sound and crack free. Okay, so tip number 2 is determining what type of tile you're installing. Now you might have already chosen the tile before even looking at this video, but it's important to know what kind of tile you're installing. If you're installing porcelain tile, this is probably the most durable type of tile, and it has the least amount of deflection that you would need in a floor. Or going with something like marble. Now marble is going to require additional support of your floor, most likely. Stone, especially something like marble, requires a much stiffer surface to adhere your tile to that floor. And on the topic of marble, I have to say I typically try to talk people out of using marble on floors and in their bathrooms. And the main reason is that it's soft, especially if it's a high gloss tile, it's easy to scratch. But more importantly, it's porous and it constantly needs maintenance, and it can be easily dyed or stained by a lot of the soaps and different things that we use. So marble, even though it's beautiful and it's a classic look, might not be the best bet to use for a long lasting bathroom. And the 3rd tip is you need to isolate your wood subfloor from your tile. Wood species always expands and contracts, and it's always a good idea to isolate that separation. So you've probably all seen the orange mat that a lot of people are using called Ditra, Schluter Ditra. That is a great option to isolate the wood subfloor from your tile layer. One of the main big reasons that people like to use it is not only is it waterproof, which is great for a bathroom, but also it gives a very thin layer and gives you the thinnest, basically, capability at your transition to your doorway. So going with something like Ditra not only waterproofs it, but it separates that tile layer. Now, if you're going with something like a smaller mosaic, say for instance like this penny tile, you're going to want to have something that's a smooth, flat surface. The waffle of a Ditra mat would not be suitable for this, nor does Schluter actually want you to use that. You might want to go with cement board. Now, cement board is not structural, but when you apply and install it correctly with thin set underneath it and use the screws in the pattern, it does make a nice rock solid surface. But other than that, I don't use cement board at all. All it really does, it does nothing for structure, for number 1. And secondly, it just raises the height of the bathroom floor for really no good reason in most situations. And on top of it, it's not waterproof. So you have to do a 3rd step by making it waterproof. In my mind, cement board is really not too many situations that you really need to use it. So the 4th tip is to make sure that your subfloor is flat and sound. I do get a lot of questions about really small amounts of difference in levelness. In my personal opinion, if you put a 6-foot level or a 6-foot straight edge and you put a level on it, if it's under a 1/4 inch, just kind of leave it alone. It's a lot of effort with floor leveling and everything else to correct a 1/4 inch, and typically that's not going to really hinder anything in the bathroom for the most part. But making sure that it's flat is really important when you're doing smaller tiles. Large format tiles can pretty much easily overcome unevenness, and a great way to feather out a uneven joint is using something like Ardex Feather Finish or a patching material that you can go right over the subfloor. It doesn't require any priming. I mean, literally takes 20 minutes and you're ready to go and tile. It just makes life a lot easier and you're doing a lot less work with thin set and trying to build things up. So having a flat surface within reason is really important for tile installations. Okay, so all this talk about subfloor thickness and isolating the plywood from your tile layer brings you to the biggest problem that we see, and that is the transition from your bathroom floor to the other rooms in your home, knowing what that thickness is. So this is one of the main reasons that Ditra is used. It reduces the size of that transition. Most likely you're going to have either hardwood or carpet at your transition, so you really want to keep your tile installation below an inch. I always dread anything over an inch because it's really tough to make a nice transition work when it's an inch or taller. So knowing the thicknesses of your material and what you're going to be used to make that transition before you start is really important. You might not want to use that marble that is a ½ inch thick if you're going to end up with an 1.5 inch transition at the doorway. So always think about that ahead of time before you start the bathroom. Okay, so my number 6 tip is about the layout of your tile. I see so many videos that are going into, create your center line, go off of that, make equal distances on the other side of the room. That's all important and that's a great reference. But in my mind, the most important thing is the most visual area of the bathroom and what everyone is going to see. Making sure that you're squaring your tile layout off of that object. So if you have a tub, I think it's most important to have all your tile even and straight against that tub line. If you're doing a curbless shower, very important to start out with a full tile at that transition, especially pattern tile. Pattern tile, you cut a ½ inch off and you can tell that somebody cut a ½ inch off. So you really want to make sure that the layout fits your bathroom and look at the visual areas that make the most sense to make sure that everything equally looks good in the bathroom. There's areas like vanities that you can hide cuts. So even if you ended up with a 2-inch sliver where there's going to be a vanity, I mean, the vanity covers the whole area, so it doesn't really matter. So always just kind of look at a higher scope of what you're doing and making sure that the visual areas are the places that you're going to be placing the tile properly. So my final tip I'm really excited to share with you, and that is with using penny tile or smaller mosaics, is using an epoxy grout that is also an adhesive. Not all epoxy grouts can do this. There's one in particular I've been using for the last few years, and that's called Ardex WA. They actually recommend it to be not only as a grout, but you can actually use it as an adhesive to install the tile. And what I really love about this, it really makes it a lot easier to install because I'm not worried about the thin set oozing up between the grout lines because it's grout and it's the same color as it. So I install it using a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch notch trowel. I embed it with a grout float. Anything that comes up, all I do is clean it off smooth and clean, and the next day I grout it with the same product, and it is all one cohesive formation of tile. So in my mind, I don't think you can get any better than installing tile with an adhesive that is also the grout. So give us a thumbs up if this video helped you out. It helps other people find this video. We want to make sure that you're getting all the great information to help you out with your project. And if you're still a little bit confused about tile floors or bathroom remodeling in general, check out our site at Bathroom Repair Tutor. We have over 230 videos on step-by-step on how to remodel your bathroom and do it right. So check us out, and we'll see you in the next video.